The day my mother left us for a long-lost love, my father became the town's laughingstock. Her old flame is rich and educated. No wonder she looks down on an illiterate bumpkin like you. He worked himself to the bone for 30 years to raise a delicate flower, only for someone else to pluck her away. Who knows, maybe the kid he raised wasn't even his. How pathetic. I couldn't stand it and rushed forward to argue, but my girlfriend pulled me back. So what if you got into a top university, Sincere? You'll never escape the confines of these mountains. But Mr. Templeton's family has been living in the city for years. His son can give me the best life. Let's call off our engagement. I didn't say a word. I ran to my father. Dad, let's leave together. Let's go see the big city. Half a month later, a villager's shout echoed through my ex-girlfriend's wedding reception. Fire, go put it out, Sincere Johnson's house is on fire. As I walked through the fields, I saw my father bent over, pulling weeds. Under the blazing sun, his face was flushed red. Dad, stop, take a break. I took his hand, stopping him from continuing the pointless task. The field was already perfectly weeded. My father straightened up, his eyes rimmed with red, his voice hoarse and weary. Sincere, I'm sorry. Your mom was right. I'm useless, just a bumpkin my whole life. If that man is really your biological father, you should go with your mom. A pang of sorrow hit me, and I cut him off. I'd heard that after my dad saved my mom from the river, it was love at first sight for him. To win her family's approval for their marriage, he'd braved the mountains and had his ribs broken by a wild boar. Before he could even recover, he heard villagers gossiping about my mom, and for the first time in his life, this honest man got into a fight. It left him with chronic pain that he endured for the better part of his life. I vaguely remember being a child, nestled in my mother's arms, and seeing her eyes light up as she spoke of that moment. She said that was the version of him she loved most. I brought up this memory, trying to comfort my father. He shook his head, his expression desolate. She said she's already wasted decades on me, that if I truly cared for her, I should let her go. I froze, my heart aching for the decades of my father's thankless devotion. No matter how the villagers whispered behind his back that I might not be his biological son, he never doubted my mother. He gave us the best he could, working like an ox for this family without a single complaint. Dad, come with me. I pulled the acceptance letter from my pocket. I had just picked it up from town that morning and hadn't even had the chance to share the good news before I heard the devastating announcement that my mother was leaving. A flicker of pride crossed my father's face. I knew my son. No, I knew you could do it. Then, as if remembering something, he added, Then let's ask April to come with us. I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth. No, she's getting married. My father stood blankly for a moment, then nodded. That's for the best, I suppose. A girl can't just follow you without a proper commitment. I gave a self-deprecating smirk. She's marrying someone else. My father shot to his feet, his face a mask of disbelief. After all, April Gable and I had grown up together, and our relationship had always been stable. He had watched her grow up. He never imagined he could have misjudged her so completely. He lowered his head, a hint of self-blame in his voice. It's because I'm useless. I've held you back. I suppressed the ache in my heart. Dad, it's not our fault. Anything that can be lost was never truly ours to begin with. My father looked up, his gaze fixed on me. After a long silence, he nodded as if he had made up his mind. All right, wherever you want to go, Dad will always support you. With the start of the semester a month away, I set aside 2 weeks to pack everything up, knowing my dad and I would be living in a strange city for the next few years. I sent my father home to rest. As I was about to leave, I saw April Gable standing outside the door with a man. Following my gaze, she introduced him awkwardly. This is my fiancé, Ethan Templeton. He was the son of my mother's old flame, Saul Templeton. Ethan Templeton frowned, a look of feigned shame on his face. April told me you've taken good care of her over the years. I know you're upset, but it was love at first sight for April and me. You can't be like your father, tying someone who doesn't love you to your side for decades, can you? He said the most repulsive things in the most polite tone. Anger surged within me, and I shot him a fierce glare. So you like to interfere in other people's relationships, just like your father? Chapter 2. You're talking nonsense, putting on his city-bred airs and seeing he couldn't win the argument. Ethan Templeton switched tactics, clutching his chest as if in pain. April Gable immediately shielded him protectively. Sincere Johnson, how can you say such nasty things? Ethan darling came to see you out of kindness and even brought you this expensive milk candy. You can't be so heartless. She tossed a small bag at me, containing just a few pieces of candy. I felt the blood rush to my head. Say that again, this is what she calls heartless? Was I supposed to cheerfully entertain my ex-girlfriend and her new fiancé as they came to humiliate me? April seemed to have forgotten. I used to bring her the same kind of candy every time I went to the county town. The sweet girl from my memories who used to call me Big Bro Sincere was a complete stranger now. I felt nothing but distance. I pushed her hand away. Take it back, I don't need your charity. April stomped her foot in anger. Your mom was right. After all, you're both just ill-mannered bumpkins, destined to be looked down on your whole lives. Her words hung in the suddenly silent air. I fought to suppress the sting in my nose. Are you finished? She bit her lip, a flash of regret crossing her face. So that's how Mom really saw Dad and me. I let out a self-mocking laugh and turned to walk towards the village chief's house, where I got 2 letters of introduction. Before leaving, I gave him some homemade cured meat. Chief, please keep these letters a secret for me. Elder Hemlock patted my shoulder. When you make something of yourself, be good to your father. He's had a hard life. I nodded. As I was leaving the chief's house, I ran into a familiar figure. Sincere, what are you doing here? The woman wore a well-tailored dress, her hair in a braid down one side. Her skin, untouched by sun and wind, was still fair, showing no signs of her nearly 40 years. It was my mother, Helen Vance. I discreetly slipped the letters into my pocket. We had some extra cured meat, so I brought some for the chief. She frowned. You can barely take care of yourselves. Anyway, I have something important to tell you. Come with me tomorrow. I'll take you to meet your father. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning and shot my head up to look at her. How could she? Just today, she had made my father a laughingstock. Everyone was gossiping about her running off with her old flame, and now she was demanding that I, her son, personally confirm the rumors and deliver the final, most painful blow to my dad. Clark Johnson will always be my real father. I have no other. She grew impatient. I'm your mother. Would I ever harm you? I'm thinking of your future. Saul works at the food processing plant. If you acknowledge your real family, you could have a stable job. I don't want it. Helen's face darkened completely. Do you want to be a farmer your whole life, useless like Clark Johnson? I'd be happy to. What about me? 2 voices spoke at once. April Gable emerged from behind a tree, her expression mournful. So what they said was true. You really are a Templeton. You had a chance to be with me. Big Bro Sincere, after all our years together, how can you be so heartless? Her voice trembled as if I were the villain who had wronged them. But this time, I would never give in. I took one last deep look at Helen Vance and asked a single question. Is Saul Templeton really my biological father? Ignoring her instantly pale face, I turned and walked away. Chapter 3. With only a few days left before our departure, I took some time to go and buy train tickets to Rongsheng. The trains were infrequent, and after waiting in line for half the day, it was late afternoon by the time I returned to the village. From a distance, I saw a crowd gathered around the low wall of my house. I could faintly hear a sharp female voice coming from inside. You know Sincere isn't your son, so why are you clinging to him? Isn't it enough that you've trapped me by your side all these years? Do you want your son to end up a farmer just like you? If you truly care about him, you'll let him come back to the Templeton family with me. My father's lips trembled as he tried to argue, but all he could do was mumble repeatedly, No, that's not it. Sincere said I'm his father. That's because he's a good son. You're just using his sense of duty to ruin his life." The spine that had stood tall his whole life suddenly seemed to bend. I rushed in to support him, meeting Helen Vance's eyes, and for the first time I felt true hatred. How cruel she was telling the whole world that my dad was a fool who'd raised another man's son. Now she was forcing him to face the loss of his family and public condemnation. Her expression that day told me she wasn't even sure I was Saul's son. She was just making a scene to gain the upper hand. By loudly proclaiming I was Saul's biological son, she not only crushed my father's dignity and pleased Saul, but also laid the groundwork for her own position in the Templeton family. "My dad is right," I said, staring at Helen Vance, enunciating each word. "Clark Johnson is my father." Helen's eyes reddened with fury, her finger trembling as she pointed at me. "Fine, don't you regret this? Stick with him, and you'll see your future is a dead end with that." She turned and stormed away. My father sat on the ground, heartbroken. "Actually, your mother is right. I can't be so selfish." I shook my head. "My mother doesn't want me. Are you going to abandon me too?" "Bro, just remember to take me with you when you make it big. Don't be a stranger when you need the money most." I clapped him on the shoulder, accepting his kindness. After setting a time to meet up, I went to the supply store to buy some dry rations. Rongcheng was far away, a 3-day, 2-night train ride. My dad's health had never been great due to an old injury, and I didn't want him to suffer on the journey. Before I could finish my shopping, an urgent voice interrupted me. "Sincere, come with me. Quick, your dad fell, hit his head, and is bleeding badly. He's been taken to the county hospital." Chapter 4. My heart dropped. Without thinking, I followed the man. "What happened? Is it serious?" The man's eyes darted around, and a sliver of suspicion grew in me. But the situation didn't allow for hesitation. I couldn't take the risk. Even if it was a lie, it was a gamble I couldn't afford to lose. We quickly reached the hospital. The man pointed me in a direction and then vanished. I hurried over and saw only April Gable. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. "You're here quick. Mr. Templeton needs a blood transfusion. He's bleeding heavily and is in critical condition." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Where's his real son? You go to all this trouble to trick me here, but his own son is nowhere to be seen?" April bit her lip and then dropped to her knees before me. "Sincere, bro, I know we both wronged you, but he's your biological father. Ethan is too frail, he can't give blood. Only you can save him." I ignored her and turned to leave, but a sharp blow struck the back of my neck. I fought through the dizziness to look back. Ethan Templeton stood there, the hand holding the club trembling slightly. Helen Vance stood beside him, her face devoid of expression. Panic seized me. My last thought before I lost consciousness was that our train tickets were for tomorrow night. I had to make it. When I woke up again, it was the next morning. Sean was sitting by my bed. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw my eyes open. "The doctor said you lost so much blood you might not wake up. You scared me to death." I managed to prop myself up and whispered in his ear, "Sean, I need you to do me a favor." That afternoon, Sean secretly brought my father to the county town. Carrying our luggage, we caught the evening train. April and Ethan's wedding banquet proceeded as planned. Just as the celebration reached its peak, a villager's shout came from outside. "Sincere Johnson's house is on fire, everyone. Help put it out." Helen and April stared at the house, now burned to ashes, their faces pale. "Isn't Sincere still in the hospital?" "Sincere was discharged this afternoon and went home." Whatever they were thinking, my father and I had no time to care. Once on the train, the excitement of the journey ahead overshadowed any apprehension about leaving home. We passed mountains, hills, and lakes, arriving in a bustling, unfamiliar metropolis. The people here were dressed in stylish, sophisticated clothes, and the neon lights at night were dazzling. Bicycles, a rare sight in the county town, were commonplace here. My father looked around, taking it all in, over and over again. Even as he sat on the soft bed in our hotel room, he still seemed dazed. I never thought I'd come so far in my life, or sleep on such a soft bed. Coming from a small mountain village, taking a train with my dad, and starting university here, it was something we never would have dared to imagine before. Thinking about the future, a powerful wave of emotion washed over me. It was so intense that I almost overslept the next day. I went to the university to register first, picked up my books, and dropped off my luggage. Then I rushed out with my dad to find a place to live. We eventually rented a room near the campus for $15 a month. My dad's face was etched with pain as I paid the rent. I reassured him that I could only focus on my studies if he was comfortable. Besides, the money I had saved up could cover the rent for 2 years. We could figure out the rest later. Once we were settled, I dove into my demanding studies. I spent nearly every day shuttling between the campus, the library, and home. Sometimes, when experiments kept me out late, my dad would wait up to open the door for me, his own eyes red from lack of sleep. It pained me to see him like that. "Dad," I said, "I want you to have more of a life of your own." My father looked puzzled. Having spent most of his life sacrificing for his child, he didn't quite understand what that meant. I put my arm around his shoulder and asked him seriously, "Dad, have you ever thought about going to school?" He instinctively refused. "Don't be ridiculous. What would an old man like me do in school?" I explained patiently, "It has nothing to do with age. There are plenty of older students in night school. The only question is, do you want to? And don't worry about the money. The government has subsidies." I had anticipated his objections. His lips moved, but no words came out. Finally, slowly and deliberately, he nodded. He went from "I can't do it" to "School is great, I'm learning so much." The smiles on my dad's face grew more and more frequent. My first year of university flew by, and my dad and I settled into life in Rongcheng. He developed his own circle of friends and, besides taking care of me, would occasionally go out with his peers, eagerly embracing the changing times. Meanwhile, I made many like-minded friends. Besides studying in labs, we talked about many things, and one name came up frequently: the great beauty of the foreign language department, Victoria Sterling. As they talked about how beautiful and capable she was, my mind flashed back to the first day of school, to the lively and vibrant image of her hastily vaulting over a side wall. It was different from their descriptions, yet it felt so incredibly alive. Chapter 5. The coursework at Rongcheng University was demanding, but the school also emphasized a student's all-around development. To keep up with the latest breakthroughs in physics, I signed up for the English corner. My partner, as it turned out, was Victoria Sterling. As was the custom, we took turns quizzing each other on our progress. Looking up from a mountain of study materials, I stretched. "Ready to be tested?" A clear, pleasant voice sounded beside me, and I couldn't help but rub my ears. A perfect broadcaster's voice in fluent English. Miss Sterling was truly outstanding. As if she knew what I was thinking, she let out a soft laugh. "It's a basic requirement for us, just like you physics majors are required to be good at math. By the time you graduate, you'll be able to speak fluent English too." I nodded. I had gone from being too shy to speak to being able to stumble through a few sentences in front of others. Victoria had helped me immensely. I often awkwardly expressed my gratitude, wanting to do something for her in return. She would always say with a serious face, "When the time is right." When the English corner disbanded at the end of the academic year, I called out to her, "Miss Sterling, thank you for your dedicated guidance this whole year. Would you mind if I bought you dinner?" Ignoring the frantic thumping of my heart, I extended the invitation cautiously. Of course, I took Miss Sterling to my family's restaurant. My father had opened it 6 months prior. I was stunned when he first proposed the idea. Rongcheng was well positioned to catch the winds of new economic policies, but it was astonishing that my father, who had spent his life working the land, could have smelled this opportunity. His business acumen seemed exceptionally sharp. Thinking about the possibility of having a father to invest in me, I didn't hesitate to give him all my savings. In the 6 months since it opened, the restaurant had flourished. With its delicious food and affordable prices, it quickly captured a share of the market. When my father saw me arrive from the university, he came out of the kitchen to greet me. His eyes lit up with delight when he saw the girl beside me. I sighed, knowing exactly what he was thinking. Ever since the incident with April Gable, he had been worried I would close myself off. I introduced them to each other. Victoria smiled charmingly. "Hello, Mr. Johnson. I've heard so much about how wonderful your food is. I'm in for a real treat today." My father beamed with joy at her flattery. I'm always hearing sincere talk about a smart, beautiful girl he knows. That must be you. You two chat, I'll go make you something delicious. After my dad went back to the kitchen, Victoria's clear, melodious laughter filled the air, her light breaths tickling my ear. A fierce heat rose to my face. "Smart and beautiful?" she teased. I shot her a glare. "Is there a problem?" When all of my father's specialty dishes filled the table, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy at the spread, which was even more lavish than when I came home for vacation. It seems Miss Sterling is not only pleasant to listen to, but also a sweet talker. She laughed so hard she bent over. "Are you a child?" The sight of her, laughing until she was out of breath in our restaurant, became my most unforgettable memory of my sophomore year. Over the next 2 years, with no shared activities, we saw less of each other. She would occasionally test my spoken English to see if I had fallen behind. I would thank her for her tireless guidance by inviting her to the restaurant for a meal. Seeing this, my father grew secretly anxious. "What are you thinking? Vicky is such a wonderful girl. If she ends up with someone else, you'll have nothing but regrets." I nodded. I knew this all too well. "Dad, I need to establish my career before starting a family. I can't give her the happiness she deserves yet." Victoria came from a true family of scholars. Both her parents were distinguished diplomats. Barring any surprises, she was destined to become an outstanding diplomat herself. She's been cherished by her family her whole life. I don't want her to face any hardship because of me. My father, seeming to recall something, patted my shoulder wistfully and said no more. All I could do was study harder, desperately trying to close the gap between me and success, hoping fate would smile on me. In my senior year, I was accepted into the master's program on the strength of my excellent grades. Between assisting my professor with experiments and writing my thesis, my time was stretched to the limit. Slowly, I lost contact with Victoria. The next I heard of her, she had given up a career in diplomacy to go into foreign trade. Many people, including me, couldn't understand her choice. On impulse, I ran to find her, stopping in front of her out of breath. She just smiled, looking at me intently. "You don't have to ask, I'll tell you, because I love it and because I believe in it." Her gaze was focused and affectionate, as if she were talking about more than just her career choice. I had to dig my nails into my palm to stop my mind from racing. Finally, I crumbled under her gaze and asked, defeated and hopeful, "What about your parents? Don't they expect you to follow the path they've planned for you?" Her eyes sparkled. "They respect my choices completely." I clutched my chest, trying to calm my wildly beating heart. "Well then, Miss Sterling, do I have a chance to be your choice?" Chapter 6. Always have been. The only choice. Under the guise of taking graduation photos, but with the secret intention of getting a picture with her, we took our first photo together. Our university days came to an end. Victoria and I were officially a couple. I thought we would have more time together. But for the next 3 years, we were both incredibly busy in our respective fields. My dad, seeing no grandchildren on the horizon, redoubled his efforts, determined to earn enough to support his future grandchildren for decades. His restaurant business boomed. In just a few years, he opened one branch after another, becoming a famous restaurateur, lauded by the media as a legendary self-made entrepreneur. He didn't stop there. He diligently studied the courses and books that Victoria and I recommended. He often told us, "You young people should rest when you're tired. Dad can still earn." At those moments, we would look at each other and smile. How lucky we were to have a father like him. After successfully graduating with my master's degree, I proposed to Victoria. With the blessing of both our parents, we had a grand wedding. Not long after, however, a letter arrived from my old village. Mother is gravely ill. Return at once. The handwriting was unfamiliar. It must have been sent by Ethan Templeton. It seemed they had seen the news reports about my father. I planned to go back alone. Victoria was in the early stages of her pregnancy and wasn't feeling well. I also didn't want my dad to have to make the trip. My opinion was unanimously rejected. In the end, my dad made the decision, hiring a bodyguard and buying 4 plane tickets. There's no way we're letting you go back alone. They have numbers on their side. We can't be at a disadvantage. Before we left, without telling anyone, I made a trip to a hospital. As the plane landed on that familiar soil, I breathed in the air I had once missed so much. A wave of emotion washed over me. When I left, I never imagined what it would be like to return. No matter how well we hid it, there was no denying that both my dad and I had been deeply hurt here. I glanced at my dad and saw that he too was silent. I didn't disturb him, just shifted my position to let Victoria sleep more comfortably. She had been sleeping a lot ever since she became pregnant. If she hadn't insisted, I would never have wanted her to undertake such a grueling journey. After we landed, Dad chartered a car. We got in, and the car drove down the forest path, through the fields, and finally reached our destination. The moment the car entered the village, it drew a crowd. The villagers gathered, more excited than for the New Year festival. Is that a private car? The kind you only see on TV? Who's the big shot? This is so extravagant. I helped Victoria out of the car, and the villagers swarmed us. After a moment, someone asked uncertainly, "You're Clark and Sincere Johnson. You're not really dead?" I nodded. Perhaps it was the commanding presence of my dad and the bodyguard. Though their curiosity was immense, no one dared to touch us or ask too many questions. They exchanged glances and whispered among themselves. Sincere had good judgment back then, picking the father with potential. Who would have thought? The Bumpkin who used to roll around in the mud is now in the newspapers. If I'd known it was so easy to make it big out there, I would have left too. Is it so hard to admit someone else is outstanding? If it were that easy, why didn't Saul Templeton succeed? He lost every penny he had. The people around us nodded in agreement. Looks like we underestimated Clark back then. See, he made it. I called out to 2 of the nearest villagers, about to ask for Helen Vance's current address. Just then, I heard a shocked female voice from behind me. Big Bro Sincere, Chapter 7. My face fell in annoyance. I couldn't believe the first person from my past I had to see was the one I least wanted to. April Gable rushed over, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. When she confirmed it was really me, her eyes reddened. "I knew you were okay." She took a few anxious steps forward, but I quickly put out a hand to block her, instinctively shielding Victoria behind me. She pressed her lips together, as if just noticing Victoria's presence, and a look of grievance flashed in her eyes. She demanded, her voice full of self-righteous indignation, "Who is she? Have you been with her all these years? How could you do this to me?" I found it laughable. We had both moved on long ago. Where did she get the nerve to bring up the past? If I recall correctly, I was this close to attending your wedding. Her breath hitched, and she shook her head frantically in denial. Big Bro Sincere, I was young and foolish back then. That's why I was deceived by Ethan Templeton. When I heard you died in the fire, I thought I'd never see you again. I cried for half a year until I nearly went blind. As she spoke, fresh tears streamed down her face. It was only then that I realized how important you were to me. For the sake of our many years together, can you please give me one more chance? It's been so long. I've missed you so much. Victoria couldn't take it anymore and retched. Terrified, I quickly patted her back. This was the first time Victoria had experienced morning sickness. She took a moment to recover. "I'm okay. It comes in waves." April's face darkened. She was about to say more, but my dad signaled the bodyguard, and April's mouth was promptly covered. They had anticipated potential trouble on our return and had arranged for security. I couldn't help but admire my dad's foresight. With Victoria pregnant, we had to be extra careful around these lunatics. We couldn't afford to be low-key. Let me go. Let me go, big bro Sincere. Don't you want to find your mom? I'll take you to her. Realizing she couldn't get any closer, April finally calmed down a little. She led the way, and we followed her to the most remote corner of the village. From a distance, we saw an old woman sitting at a doorway, shelling peanuts. She looked up at the sound of our approach, and her eyes lit up with intense surprise. "Clark, you're finally back." Helen Vance scrambled to her feet, nervously wringing her hands at her sides, then tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The coldness and disdain were gone from her face, replaced by a bashful expression. But something had happened to her over the years. She had aged considerably. If they stood together now, they no longer looked like father and daughter, but more like younger brother and older sister. My father and I exchanged a look. We had suspected Helen was faking a serious illness to lure us back. The current situation came as no surprise. "Clark, I thought I'd never see you and our son again. The moment I knew you were lost in that fire, my world collapsed. I dug through the rubble, searching and searching, but I couldn't find your remains. I prayed to God countless times to bring you back to me. And thank heavens, he answered. From now on, our family of 3 can be together again, and will never be separated, okay?" She looked at my dad with adoration, as if she were deeply in love with him. I had no doubt about my father's current appeal. As a successful, distinguished, and disciplined entrepreneur with a dignified bearing, he was undoubtedly the version of him Helen had once loved most. "Don't be ridiculous, Mrs. Templeton. A lifelong bumpkin like me isn't good enough for you." My dad's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Besides, Mrs. Templeton is already married. Bigamy is against the law." Hearing this, Helen frantically tried to explain. "No, that's not it. You are wonderful. It was I who was blind. I've already left Saul. Please come back, won't you? Our family of 3, we're the closest family there is." The mockery on his face deepened. "Speaking of which, I hate to even think about it. You 2 tried to take Sincere away from me. What kind of family is that?" "No, that was a moment of weakness. I just wanted to give Sincere enough." My dad cut Helen off impatiently. "Since you're alive and well, we'll be leaving. If you ever use an excuse like this to trick Sincere back here again, I swear I won't let you get away with it." Helen, as if suddenly remembering my presence, looked at me with pleading eyes. "Sincere, I'm your mother. You can't be so heartless and abandon your own mother." I gave her a cold glance. "The moment you knocked me out to give Saul Templeton my blood, you stopped being my mother." My dad's head shot up in shock beside me, and I realized my slip of the tongue. Furious, he kicked Helen hard. "This one's for my son. You don't deserve to be his mother when you die. Don't even think about contacting him with that." We walked away from the Templeton house. Victoria had been quiet and sullen, and I knew she was hurting for me. I quickly tried to distract her. A pregnant woman shouldn't be under stress. I led her to sit under a large tree. This was my favorite spot when I was a kid. Dad would be down there planting rice seedlings, and I'd sit here doing my homework after school. A gentle breeze blew, smoothing the wrinkles in our hearts, but that peace was abruptly shattered. Chapter 8. Ethan Templeton and a group of local thugs surrounded us. I immediately moved to protect Victoria. My dad and the bodyguard flanked her on either side. We were clearly outnumbered. Even a skilled bodyguard couldn't protect all of us. My only option was to stall for time. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Ethan pointed a trembling finger at me and yelled, "Why didn't you die out there? What did you come back for? Haven't you made our lives miserable enough?" I frowned, picking up on his words. "You and your father stole my mother and my girlfriend. I haven't even settled the score with you, and now you're turning it around on me?" Ethan's face grew even uglier. "If it weren't for your mother, my father wouldn't have had a stroke and become paralyzed. If it weren't for you, April and I could have been happy." From his disjointed complaints, I pieced together what had happened. After Helen married into their family, she was initially content with the material comforts Saul provided. But the more she saw, the more her ambitions grew. She watched others get rich from new ventures and convinced Saul to quit his job and gamble their entire life savings. They lost everything. Unable to accept this reality, Saul had a stroke and was left paralyzed. April, after my death, was genuinely heartbroken and realized that I was the one she truly loved. So right after their wedding, she fought constantly with Ethan, making him a laughingstock. He blamed me for all of it and was now determined to make me pay. Teach them a lesson today. The thugs started closing in. I backed away, terrified they would hurt Victoria. Just then, the village chief arrived, his sharp voice halting the chaotic scene. "What's wrong with you? Do you want to be locked up again?" Ethan ground his teeth. "I'll let you go, but my father said it'll cost you $100,000 to sever the ties of kinship. After all, you have our Templeton blood running through your veins." My dad gritted his teeth, about to agree, but I stopped him. $100,000 needs a witness, doesn't it? What if you go back on your word? Ethan, already seeing the money in his grasp, readily agreed. After they left, I clapped the new chief on the shoulder. "Look at you now." The old chief, Elder Hemlock, had retired. The new chief was Sean. Time had erased the youthfulness from his face. "Thanks, brother. You got here just in time." He punched me back playfully. "Of course. You're a great talent from our village. How could I let anyone bully you? In that case, could you do me one more small favor? My family will fund and support the village's future development projects." Sean quickly gathered the villagers in the open square. As everyone wondered what was happening, I walked into the center of the crowd holding up a report. 8 years ago, when I left, everyone thought I wasn't Clark Johnson's son. So before I came back, I went to a hospital and used the latest technology to confirm with absolute certainty that Clark Johnson and I share a biological father-son relationship. Of course, even without that biological tie, he is the only father I will ever acknowledge. I did this test, 1, to make certain people give up hope, and 2, to prove that my success is inherited entirely from Clark Johnson's excellent genes and has nothing to do with anyone else. Seeing the looks of despair and the pale faces of certain individuals, I admit, it felt good. On the edge of the crowd, my dad's eyes were red. He wiped away a tear, embarrassed. The woman standing by his side watched me, her gaze gentle and unwavering. I ran to them, the 2 people I love most in this world. After returning to Rongsheng, I quickly put the troublesome people from my past out of my mind. 6 months later, Victoria gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. By the time I got around to reading a letter from my old village, half a year had passed. The letter was from Sean. He detailed how the funds my father had donated were being used. He also mentioned what had become of the others. April Gable had tried to run away from home but was caught and dragged back by Ethan. They got into a huge fight, and in the chaos a candle was knocked over, setting their house on fire. They both could have escaped, but when they were found, their bodies were twisted together in a final struggle, neither willing to let the other go. Saul, unable to move, also perished in the fire. The only one to escape was Helen Vance, who happened to be out at the time. But without a home, her life was not easy. After reading the letter, I sent some money back with my reply, entrusting Sean with sending installment payments to my birth mother for her support. I didn't follow up after that. Life is long. The meal on my plate, the person by my side. The rest is just passing clouds.